There you go. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Today, I'd like to have a look at some of the later lessons in the course and some of the principles that come up when you read them. The reason I picked them because they're the last section of lessons are very uplifting, and in this time when things are pretty hectic, and I would call them thing that is a little more uplifting. Look at the latter lessons, and I'll give you an example of one or two of them, and we'll look at actually today's lesson, number 348. In a bit of a detail, but I also want to. The Course of Miracles pops up almost everywhere now. If it's in your purview, if you're thinking along the lines of A Course of Miracle principles, you'll see it coming up in spirituality circles all over the place. And I'm sure Linda, you know that I use him fairly often in my studies for A Course of Miracles. And I put two links in my notes, and I think Mary Jean will share those, and also the link that comes from the Course of Miracles Society to today's lesson. I do have them up on a document, which hopefully I can share with you as we go. Mooji is a spiritual guide or guru who works out of, or has his ashram, so to speak. It's not really called that, but his group works out of Portugal. And he's doing online classes and studies now. And if you look him up on Mooji, Mooji, you'll get that if you use those links. And I find it'll be the Course of Miracles in a different language, but you'll see that the principles that he talks about are the same in many, many ways, plus stuff as well. And so I thought I'd start off. There's the two links there. He reads from a little notebook of notes that he makes. And the very first one is quite long. It's five minutes at the end that I'd like you to listen to, and hopefully it'll come across. And then think about what he's talking about and see if it makes any sense to you or whatever comes up in your mind, and ask about those, or we can talk about those. So it's about 5 minutes, and let me see. Let me share screen. Where is that? Yeah, dear. Where's my share screen? At the bottom here. Okay. And I got sound, share. And if you'll see, if you look in the middle, you have Mooji there. Maybe is it sharing screen yet?
There, it's up now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's up now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just start it, and I think you'll like what he says.
When the self is realized, it will be obvious that it was, it is, and always is here, perfect, timeless, unchanging, and imperishable. You see? As the self is realized, when it is realized, it it will be obvious that it was always here. It was, it is, and will always be perfect, timeless, unchanging, imperishable. Next one. If or when it feels difficult or even impossible to surpass the personal identity, turn to prayer and ask God to absorb or merge the mind inside Him, who is the self. You understand this one? Sometimes we are feeling, whoa, I just can't focus on the too impersonal, and I can feel my identity so strong. I'm so strong identity. Then in that case, if you're not able to follow through with the inquiry, then turn to prayer. Ask God like that. You ask Him like this, you see. Turn to prayer and ask God to absorb and merge the mind inside the self, inside Him. This is another one. The next one. It is only the mind that believes in the mind. Turn the mind's attention to the heart again and again by remaining mind's formless witness. Heart, gradually. So again, it is the mind that believes in the mind. It is the mind constructed identity that is believing and have a relationship with the mind. Turn this mind's attention towards, as I've shown you, do it again and again, by remaining the witness of the mind itself, and it will gradually merge in the heart and be quiet. Now, I don't expect, as I speak this, immediately it is so. No, sit with it and marinate, look, verify, keep quiet and see, like this. And for now, I'm going to read you maybe the last one. What you call death is only a door you will pass through without stopping there. What we call death, that terrifies so many people. It's only a door, a curtain. Like Rumi, I think coming out, Rumi said like this, don't be worried for me when I leave this body. I'm just passing through a curtain into paradise. What does it mean? Don't worry. So let me see how many I've got here. Yes. So I've read 8 of them. I have 8 more. I'll leave that for later. How about that? Enough for the moment. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me? That may be a bit like you're jumping into the principles of the course already known. So it's hard to maybe match up what he's talking about and how the course talks about. Did you pretty well understand what he was talking about? Or if you have any questions about what he was saying? He talks about the self and the merging of the heart and mind and death. What does death mean? And those are about 3 major principles in the course. Self being the true self, the person you really are, a child of God, the awakened being that you are. except that we're mostly asleep at the moment to that true self with a capital S, which would be your soul, your spiritual body, your true being is what the course talks about. And so, and he's saying that is who you are. And then we get mixed up with the ego mind chatter, and he talks about when you're in a state of being, of that awareness in the self, you can watch all that activity from a position where you're at peace and in joy. And that's essentially what the course says as well. And merging the heart is love, the love of God, and the mind that is our reasoning, and it's a tool to get our self into the heart realm of our true selves, and not being caught up in the chatter of our mind and our ego. The mind being the one that latches into what the ego is. And death is, he talks about at the end, is the awakening that occurs in the Course in Miracles. When they talk about awakening, it's like being, in the Bible, it says being reborn, born again. And this is the awakening. And the crucifixion is really a way of showing us that death has no meaning, really. And what it is that passing into an aware person and into the presence of God, so to speak. And through that presence, whether we're alive or dead in the physical form, then we can handle pretty well anything in the world, which is something that God says he does love. But we think we are in control of what is happening in this world without letting God pass through us, which is what the Course is trying to do, to awaken us to our true being. And this is what Muji is trying to do as well. So in those few little notes that he made, you get quite a bit of the essence of the Course. And any thoughts on that? I don't know if am I still sharing? Yes.
There is a comment, Johan,
there's the first. Oh, yeah, okay.
There is a comment in the chat that says, we are awakening from a sleep state.
Yep. That's we're asleep, essentially. And being reborn is becoming awake to our true selves, which is who God is in us. God, the goddess, creator, the universe is us, really. And being in sync with that part, well, with that being, to be able to respond correctly and to partake in the full power that God has through us. That's, yeah, basically what he's talking about. We're asleep now, and we insist that our dreams are reality, and they seem so real, but we have this feeling that it's something different. It's not quite right. It doesn't come out right. We suffer. We get depressed. We get angry. We fight with each other. We attack each other. We defend ourselves. The whole wrangle of life. Whereas if we were in our awakened state, we can handle these things with all the power of God within us. In that form of child, as a child of God. Anyway, don't know if that answers your question, or if that was a question, but more of a statement. And that's
I think
right,
it was
we are
I
asleep.
think it was a statement.
But we're working at waking up.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There is another comment in the chat.
And okay.
I often wonder if becoming awakened is similar to developing a metacognition, a learning to think about thinking.
Yes. To learn about thinking. There's I mentioned the book before, a Terry Pratchett book, where he talks about second thoughts and third thoughts. First thoughts are your reactionary thoughts, which seem to jump in your mind right away and confuse us. And then the secondary thoughts is that we're aware that this is happening, and you can, that there's these reactions you're having, so you can be aware and kind of watch them. And our third thoughts are putting them in their proper perspective, I guess. And you can make comments on even the thoughts about what your reactions are, and function on that plane where you're not reacting, where you're thinking about what you're saying, and is that what I would like to say? Things like that. So there's those, I don't know if you can call them levels, but 3 kind of approaches to thinking, to learning about how your mind works. And the course doesn't talk about first voice, second voice, third voice, but it does talk about being aware and watching your ego mind and dealing with it, how to work with it in a world with a true perspective of your true being. Does that help a bit or make it more confusing? Okay. I'm going to go back to the top here. I wanted to talk a bit about the lessons. Let's see. This is, I'll close Muji Baba. Let's see. And we'll go here. Every day I get from the Course in Miracles Society a lesson. They do a lesson a day, starting at January 1st and going right to the end. And this is the one for today. And it's divided up in, if you want to subscribe to this, I highly recommend it, even if you don't even read them every day, but I find every time I go read them, they hit the spot for the meaning for the day almost right on every time. And they do give you a bit of a reading from the text apropos the lesson. And they'll, for the section you're in, there's descriptions or about miracles, forgiveness, judgment, and quite a few other terms. And the one that is currently up is called a miracle. And what is a miracle? And we'll talk a bit about that too. And then it gives you the actual lesson, and we'll go with that. And there's also quite a bit of discussion on another section. They go through the text right from the beginning of the year. Some of them are maybe selected, but they'll give you the whole text and in a daily reading kind of basis. And then there's a commentary, especially by this lady, Sarah, which is quite long. And I don't know if I have the whole, yeah, here it is. This is her commentary. And we'll look at her first paragraph in a bit of a detail. And
Johan?
I think that's pretty well it.
Johan,
you can do it in
did you,
audio. There's another commentary by Alan Watson.
Did you provide the
Can you
link
see this?
for those emails, Johan?
Yes.
Is that one of the links? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think it's A Course in Miracles Society, and I gave you that link a while ago, maybe in the notes from previous versions. But it's in
Okay.
this, when you click on the link I gave you today, it'll have all the information about Course in Miracles Society, and you can subscribe, join mailing list here, and subscribe to the lessons. Anyway, I thought I'd give you a bit of an overview of a way of doing those lessons with commentary and text relevant parts. And it's a good way to learn about the course, if nothing else. And you can go into as much depth as you want in one of those lessons. Okay. That's the lessons. And some of the questions they posed right at the beginning, like this is from the lesson 348 today, and it's relevant to the concepts that it talks about. And some of the things that also made me think of Muji this morning, like there is no death in that quote or reading. The resurrection must occur, that we are all destined to wake up, in other words, and that is rebirth is man's inheritance. And when I come to Christmas, that being reborn or being born into that Christ-like state is what I think about when I approach Christmas. It's not the birth of somebody who's going to take on all my sins, so to speak, which is another concept that the Course talks about. And so rebirth is the awakening to our true beings. And that's what I would call being born again as well. So when I hear fundamentalist stage, you have to be born again. And the idea is, yes, you have to wake up to who you really are. And in yellow there, I have the world you see cannot be the world God loves. And yet his word assures us that he loves the world. The world must be looked at differently if his promises are to be accepted. What the world is but a fact. You cannot choose what this should be, but you can choose how you would see it. Indeed, you must choose this. So it's really a looking at the world differently and through the eyes of God, guidance of Jesus' teachings, the listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit. Okay. If you have any questions, just jump in or write it in for Mary Jean to jump in with. What is a miracle? And we just talked about correcting or changing your way you look at things. And a miracle is when that occurs, when we look at things correctly. I can read these through, but I could also just give you a quick scan of them. We're already. Thank you.
I think it's interesting that it's
I'll read you
called.
that first one though. It does not create.
Sorry, Johan. I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that it is called a miracle because to me that means
go
that.
ahead.
To me, it says that, gosh, our minds must be very stubborn. That it's not easy for us to change our minds. It's a miracle when we do change our minds, when we're able to see things differently.
Yeah. And when the Bible talks about the miracles of Jesus, basically that's what it is seeing things from their rightful being perspective and looking at things completely differently. So a miracle is a correction. It does not really create nor really change at all. It merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. It undoes error, but does not attempt to go beyond perception nor exceed the function of forgiveness, which is another. Forgiveness is another topic maybe we'll get on in depth in one of these studies. Thus, it stays within time's limits, yet it paves the way for the return of timelessness and love's awakening, for fear must slip away under the gentle remedy it gives. So what we're talking about in miracles is something that happens in the world that we perceive that helps us to awaken to the person that we really are. And once we are awake and staying in that to being the miracles, the need for miracles disappears because life is one continuous miracle, and it's not perceived as miraculous. It's normal now. Miracles contain the gift of grace. Grace is that unconditional sharing of love with each other and with God. So it's God's grace to us, and when we experience or are participating in miracles, that's representative. That is that in that state of grace that we exist. A miracle inverts perception, which was upside down before, and thus ends the strange distortions that we manifest. Now is perception open to the truth. Now is forgiveness seen as justified. And forgiveness, in all its essential meaning, is that there's nothing to forgive because it never happened in the first place. And that's the state of mind that we are trying to achieve. We forgive as if it never happened before. Forgiveness is the home of miracles. And each miracle is laid before the word of God upon the universal altar of creator and creation in the light of perfect purity and endless joy. So through miracles, we experience the forgiveness. Each lily of forgiveness, they say, offers the world the silent miracle of love. And that's the state that we really want to be in. And they talk about the universal altar. I was thinking of getting into this, the altar of God, and it's quite a broad concept that pops up throughout the course. What is the altar of God? And what does it mean? And essentially it means giving over all our misperceptions, all our burdens, and pain and suffering, actually giving it to God and letting it go. In other words, it disappears. And then also, upon that universal altar is we receive the light of perfect purity and endless joy, almost in exchange for what we drop there, leave there, and forget totally about it. And in that doing of letting go of everything and not picking it up again, not just letting it go on the door and then on the way out pick it up. Muji talks about that a lot too. Letting go in the light of perfect purity and endless joy is where that's the gift we receive back from God on that. And that altar is kind of a metaphor for the significance of giving things up and letting go and picking up your state of a child of God, a true being. The miracles taken first on faith. And the Course encourages faith in the sense that just try it, and you'll without thinking too much about it, I'll never work and all the rest of it. But just try it on faith and see what happens. Because to ask for it implies the mind has been made ready to conceive for what it cannot see and does not understand. That is the definition of faith. Faith in things you cannot see and do not understand. Yet faith will bring its witnesses to show that what is rested on is really there. And thus the miracle will justify your faith in it and show it rested on a world more real than what you saw before. A world redeemed from what you thought you saw. So right from the very first lesson, it talks about faith. Just do the lessons, don't think about them too much, and gradually you'll begin to see what they're about and understand in your true being, with your true being, the truth of what is of the perception they're trying to change for you. Miracles fall like drops of healing rain from heaven on a dry and dusty world where starved and thirsty creatures come to die. Now they have water. Now the world is green. And everywhere the signs of life of spring up. Signs of life spring up to show that what is born can never die. What has life has immortality. So when you change that, an awakened state is the eternal state, is our true state, being aware of God and handling wherever we are and dealing with all our perceptions from that truly, true signs of life and spring. Anyway, that's a very poetic little paragraph. Okay. Any thoughts? The lessons at this point are very succinct, and they usually give a statement and then a prayer that we are giving. And today it's, I have no cause for anger or for fear, for you, being God, the Creator, surround me, and in every need that I perceive, your grace suffices me. So, and that's the state we are promised that we will be living in. Father, let me remember you are here and I am not alone. Surrounding me is everlasting love. I have no case for anything except the perfect joy, peace and joy I share with you. What need have I for anger or for fear? Surrounding me is perfect safety. Can I be afraid when your eternal promise goes with me? Surrounding me is perfect sinlessness. What can I fear when you created me in holiness as perfect as your own? God's grace suffices us in everything that he would have us do, and only that we choose to be our will as well as his. So if we, I don't know, when I read these things like first thing in the morning, that puts me in a proper frame of mind that I can deal with things and try not to forget this lesson or come back to it whenever you find yourself caught up in the ego mind trap that we so enjoy to muddle around in. So this lesson we would do almost as a mantra or a prayer in your morning meditations or throughout the day whenever you would need it. And
so,
then,
Johan,
yes.
there is a question.
Okay.
And since you mentioned prayer again there, just jumping in, you talked about the altar and how we can leave our concerns, on the altar of God. And so the question is, do our prayers land on that altar of God?
Prayers are essentially talking with God, listening for the voice of God, and the Course calls it the voice of God is the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is our intermediary between God and ourselves, where we can offer up our concerns, whatever, and then to be listened to the God's guidance through that still small voice, or that awareness of the correct thing or the correct way to look at things. And in that prayer, essentially we're letting go or wanting to see things correctly and know in that correct state, in corrected state, how we can handle things in a loving, helpful manner in everyday life. So, but the altar is the part where we try to let go of our perceptions, of our projections, of our own thoughts of what a fact or what is going on in the world. Whatever's going on will go on, but how we see it is up to us. And correcting our perception without judgment, and in love, and in compassion, and all those states that raise our own vibrational level, and we can feel it. Am I getting lost? I'm rambling a bit here. So the altar is a representation of taking those incorrect views or all those burdens that we have, that we think we have, and then to a point where they never happened. I have a vision of a clear glass, almost mirrored tabletop or irregular surface, whereas something that I want to get rid of goes on and disappears into it. And that's representative of it disappearing from my mind and my concern. And it's like a deep sigh, a deep relief, and the Spirit of God washes over you in the miracle of that giving and seeing correctly. So it's a representation or part of our prayers, I guess. It's not a physical thing where the Bible's notation is where we sacrifice something to atone. Atonement is another concept in the Course, which turns around, and you see it differently as well. So the altar of God, takes metaphorically our sins, which are only in our mind, and somebody else's sins, and takes them from you and gives you back nothing but the love of God through His grace. I don't know if that helps the concept of prayer or how to pray, I guess, if that helps. Where are we? The next one, if there's no more questions on that, I'm sure it raises all kinds of, it does in my mind anyway, all kinds of things I'd like to ask and think about.
Yeah, just a comment that this person says, I can see using this to give our prayers to God to do His will.
Yeah, and to Jesus' will, I would say, and then to let the will of God be our will. I said that earlier, that it corresponds. It's giving it over, getting it out of our heads, so that there's no longer a need to suffer, because now we live in synchronicity, I guess you could say, with the will of God and its total awareness that it gives us. So yeah, that makes sense. And this was another one I read a few days ago. And I woke up thoroughly, yeah, sometimes you have nightmares during the night, or your thoughts go off rambling into some of the most horrible things. But when I read this in the morning, it gives me a proper state of mind to enter the day. Today, the peace of God envelops me, and I forget all things except his love. Very basic state that you can remember and think about during the day. Father, I wake today with miracles correcting my perception of all things. And so begins the day I share with you as I will share eternity, for time has stepped aside today. I do not seek the things of time, and so I will not look upon them. What I seek today transcends all laws of time and things perceived in time. I would forget all things except your love. I would abide in you and know no laws except your love of love, your law of love. And I would find the peace with you, created for your son. And often when they talk in the Course about your son is you, your true being. Forgetting all the foolish toys I made as I behold your glory and my own. And when evening comes today, we will remember nothing but the peace of God, for we will learn today that peace is ours, what peace is ours when we forget all things except God's love. So when I read that first thing in the morning, I'm going, oh my God, thank you. and try to remember that kind of a statement for the day. In this sense, I forget all things except his love and live in that in my mind. And then there's the last one. And I'm going to give you a little, if this works, sound bite from Kenneth Wapnick, who reads this and makes a bit of a commentary about it. Lesson 303, the Holy Christ is born in me today. And this is kind of a Christmas theme, so I thought I'd leave that with you guys as a Merry Christmas a statement. So the Holy Christ is born in me today. Let me see if I can get this down all the way in here. There we go. And I'm going to put my microphone up to the speaker here, and hopefully you'll hear it being read. He makes a few comments on it too as he reads it. Kenneth Wapnick is a major teacher. He was the founder of the foundation of A Course in Miracles, and I think I've given references or in previous lessons as well, or links to his site. And he knew Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford, and he grew out of that and developed his own lessons, not his own lessons, but lessons in accordance with the Course. So let me see if you can hear this. And you might have to turn up your volume. I'll turn up mine and let's see how this goes. I'll put this close up. Okay.
I thought I'd close by reading lesson 303, The Holy Christ is Born in Me Today. I think I mentioned it briefly earlier. It's on page 451. All right, this lesson was written at Christmas time, so it has that Christmas theme and basically the same themes that we've kind of looked at already. It's a very, very beautiful lesson. All right. As you all know, in the workbook in part 2, each lesson, except at the end, are in 2 parts. One is basically what Jesus says to us and for us, and The second part, sometimes it's there, the order is inverted, but the second part, which is we find in this lesson, is our prayer to God. So the words are ours. Just one other quick note. It begins with the phrase, watch with me, angels. There are no angels. Sorry to tell you. All right. All right. Angels are simply symbols, and of course, are symbols of the loving thoughts that are in our mind. There is no hierarchy of beings. All right. Everything is only a thought. There are wrong-minded thoughts and right-minded thoughts, and angels are the symbols of right-minded thoughts. The Holy Christ is born in me today. Watch with me, angels, watch with me today. Let all God's holy thoughts surround me and be still with me while heaven's Son is born. Let earthly sounds be quiet and the sights to which I am accustomed disappear. Let Christ be welcomed where he is at home, and let him hear the sounds he understands and see but sights that show his Father's love. Let him no longer be a stranger here, for he is born again in me today. Your Son is welcome, Father. He has come to save me from the evil self I made. He is the self you've given me. He is but what I really am in truth. He is the Son you love above all things. He is myself as you created me. It is not Christ that can be crucified. Safe in your arms, let me receive your Son.
Okay. Were you able to hear that? And read at the same time.
Yes, we could hear that, Jan. I wonder
Oh,
if
great.
you would,
Okay.
if you could,
I'm gonna
wonder if you could talk about this statement right at the very beginning that there are no angels. There's a few
Right.
comments
I
about
thought you
that.
might.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you think about what do we use the thought or the idea of angels for, and what do they represent? And this is what Kenneth Wapnick says, that angels represent or can be the voice of those things that are congruent or are gods, are the right. There's really no right and wrong because there's only right, or the other incorrect thoughts, so to speak. And there's the correct thoughts, and when you touch on those thoughts, it's almost like an angel guiding you. If you think about angels as guides, those thoughts about the correctness of God's voice and his love shining through those ideas and what they represent. Those are the angels that the Course talks about. It's not like a physical being, and you can think of them that way, but keep in mind that they represent the correct thoughts of God's mind, of God's love for you. I don't know if that helps a little bit or not, because often we think of angels actually physically helping us, and that physically helping is the thought about doing things correctly with God in doing our will, or his will through us. So Does that help at all, or does that make it more muddy? Did I? I'll get rid of this. Could you see that, what I just put up, or not? No, maybe not. I stopped sharing. Anyway, yes. Any thoughts? No. Okay. Did that help at all?
My chat's not working, but I feel some resistance to my old thoughts and about angels. You know, I just find angels comforting, and all of the work I've done in my spiritual path, it's hard for me to equate them with a simple thought of God, although I can understand that intellectually, but it's like, no, I'm not ready to quite accept that and give up angels the way I perceive them.
Right. I think what he's trying to say is that they're not separate beings from us.
Oh,
Often it's a way to put at a distance God's, or however you want to describe who God is in your own mind, his will and his thoughts flowing through us. If you want to think of them as angels, beautiful beings or whatever, but don't separate them from yourself, from your own thoughts about what God is trying to communicate to you. Because God will communicate in any way, through angels, through the idea of angels, through images that you create in your own head, or wherever, even physically create to remind you of God's principles and his will, for being helpful, and all those terms: compassion, non-judgmental, and love, expressing his love and concern for you, and how to do that for his creation, be that in his creation for each other. Or that's a whole other thing too, as brothers and sisters. We are all our brothers and sisters, and you do not enter the kingdom of God, or you don't wake up without your brother, holding your brother's hand with you. But that's a whole other class on how we do not enter into a state of being by ourselves. You can't do that yourself. So maybe that's a good thought to leave with. I don't know if that helps with the angel idea. I like to see gorgeous picture of angels and what they represent. I think, oh, okay. Yeah.
actually,
It's just like
what you said about not separating myself from them was rather, that stuck with me.
Okay.
In all the oneness.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. Thanks.
Good.
Very good. I'm mindful of our time. Is there any other question that you'd like to give Johan? Just going to check the comments here. There is a comment that we don't wake up unless we do so holding our brother's hand. And I totally agree. This is the reunification of Cain and Abel. Abel is asleep, so to say, in the land of Nod.
Precisely. Yeah. And the course will help you to look at all those concepts, because the course is in biblical language. It'll change your whole way of looking at those things from a corrective perspective, from the perspective of God's will for us. And it's so uplifting and relieving to read the Bible that way, with a Course in Miracles principles in mind. That was the first thing that the Course did for me, was turned around my whole view of biblical ideas and concepts. More, and to me, of course, it's totally in alignment with the will of God.
Jan,
Yeah.
um, I listened to the lessons from A Course in Miracles from, I think that, from this website, but I'm not sure I'm connected to all of the dialogue you're getting with it. So I missed that link.
If you go to that link that that Mary Jean shared with you, it'll bring you to the lesson for today, but you can scroll through it. You can open it up in your web browser and you can subscribe to the daily lesson, goes into your email box. Or you go to the Course in Miracles Society. I think did I show you the page?
I am on the
Are you,
foundation, the Course in Miracle
Yeah, the foundation for A
Foundation.
Course in Miracles is a little bit different. This is
Okay,
the
I'm on
Course
a
in
different
Miracles.
site then.
Yeah, the Course in
Okay.
Miracles Society is the one that actually publishes the books, the first, the second, and third editions, and those are the ones that Kenneth Wapnick used, which is his is called the Foundation of A Course in Miracles, or something like that. I know it's confusing sometimes.
It
Let
is.
me see if I still have that.
are you able to get your
Here,
chat open there, Linda?
let me share this screen here, and can I still do that? Share screen, and here you go. I don't know, can you see that? This is, they actually use the original edition in their lessons, but it's easily relatable to the second edition, which is the one I use. Can you see this? It gives you the current 2020 daily lessons in text, and you can scroll through them for any day, and you can click on say, the email edition mailing, and it'll give you all the comments and readings in them. I don't know. It probably has maybe I can share this in the chat, the link for that. Let's see, where's the chat?
Are you able to open your chat though,
There we
Linda?
go.
I don't know if you said you were having a difficulty with it. You're muted, so I can't hear you.
Anyway, there it is.
I can see it,
If you want it.
Mary Jean.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
So that'll give you all the daily lessons and sign up for it.
there you go.
That's the one I like anyway.
Perfect.
The only thing is the original edition, but I like the second edition because it's a little more consistent throughout. And in the original edition, I think that was the purpose of the second edition. In the second one, it numbers things and makes things. Often in the original edition, it'll switch between soul, spirit, and the second edition keeps it consistent throughout. Anyway, it's a work in progress, as well as we are.
Definitely a work in progress. And that's why there's 365 lessons, I think, in A Course in Miracles. Some of us are slow learners like me anyways. And so I might need to make a few passes through the book to get it all. But it helps to have this kind of discussion. So I really appreciate everyone coming and sharing with us today, because I know I'm not alone in trying to understand some of the concepts of the book. And sometimes some of it's difficult to wrap around your head, but eventually you get there. Were you going to say something, Linda?
Yes, sorry, mind reader. No, I really like Marianne Williamson and her take on A Course in Miracles, and she is starting in the new year to do a morning mail out with each of the lessons and a little commentary. The only thing is it's $50 US, but it's for the full year. So just another Yeah, and I don't know if anybody's familiar. I finally got this book from Krista, is A Return to Love. And it's Reflections on A Course in Miracles by Marianne Williams. So
Mhm.
I enjoy that too.
Yes,
That's
I've
all.
heard that that book is really good to help you understand the Course in Miracles. I haven't read it yet, so I need to get that one, I think. So I am mindful of our time. It is a few minutes past the hour, but I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming and sharing with us today.
Thank you,
And
Johan.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
really
you
appreciate
for
your
Mary Jean
coming.
for
insights.
organizing.
You're very welcome. We'll be meeting again in the new year.
Thank
It'll
you.
be the second Monday. Yes. Yeah.
Hugs to you all.
The hugs.
Yes, you too.
No, the
and
elbow.
Merry
Virtu-
and
oh,
the Merry
virtual hugs.
Christmas. Yeah.
Merry
Aw,
Christmas to everybody.
yeah. We hope that you all have a safe and happy holiday, and hopefully we'll see you back in the new year.
Thank
We
you.